Hi everyone, I'm Bryan Intihar, Senior Creative Director at Insomniac Games and on Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I'm here to answer your questions on the internet. This is Video Game Support. First question, Ben Edipel asks, how did you guys come up with the web shooting sound? First off, we hire a really awesome audio team. They actually told me that what they do is they have silly string, plastic wrap, shrink wrap, and they even make those thwip sounds like with their voices. And it's all integrated into making our awesome web sounds. As a creative director, I see everything on the project, but I do not offer my own sound effects because nobody wants that. @GamerPA asks, honest question, do game directors focus on the overall creative vision of a game, or do they have some type of programming coding skills? So you actually don't need to have programming or coding skills. There's a lot of different ways to become a creative director or a game director. I actually started out as a journalist writing about video games. And eventually I said, hey, I'd love to go work at a studio. And I actually started working at Insomniac roughly 15 years ago. And I started out on the community team, answering emails, talking to our fans. A couple years later, became a producer. And then one day, back in 2014, walked into the office of Ted Price, our president and CEO. He asked me, what do I think about working on the Marvel game? Yes, please. And I said, I don't want to be the producer. I want to be the creative director. If you have a passion, willing to work hard, and you work well with others, you can do anything you want. @BenN64 asks, the game Spider-Man 2 Venom is the best Venom design. Changed my mind. Ben, I'm not going to change your mind. I completely agree with you. So we want to take all of the elements that players and fans love about Venom, whether it's his size, the symbol, his teeth, his mouth, his eyes, the transformation, the power. So we want to kind of be respectful of the DNA of the character, but also not be afraid to mix things up. And if you take that all into account, get 19 inches of Venom. All 19. This is actually the part of the collector's edition, and that features both of our Spider-Men fighting their toughest challenge yet in the form of Venom. Pretty badass. Matthew Guz asks, what's your game design philosophy in tweet form? You want to deliver the fantasy while making a world and characters that you absolutely love and want to spend time with. Silent Wraith 87 asks, how do you decide which suits go in the game? Is it personal preference, or do you think about abilities and which suits would match up well with them? And are you free to pick, or do Marvel have a say? Wow, where do I begin? We know there are suits that everybody wants. We talk to Marvel, we talk to our Sony producers. We get artists to create brand new suits that have never been made before. Suits are unlocked via basically hitting a certain hero level and then having the right resources to craft it. So that's how you do. And then, because we have 2 heroes, we have over 65 suits, and now we want to go even bigger with that. So now the majority of suits have what we call suit style. So there's usually 4 different suit styles you can unlock for that suit, which means we have over 200 different suits in the game, which is crazy. But at the same time, we hope we got everything everybody wanted. It's like Christmas, and it's all the presents are under the tree, and you're like, I hope I got them everything they wanted. Clay864 asks, but is there going to be a Spider-Man 5 console like we got with the PS4 from the first game? Damn straight there's going to be. Got this sweet controller, symbiote takeover, but the real cool stuff is this sweet, sweet, sweet console. I don't even have one yet as we sit here. This idea of the symbiote and takeover not only thematically works for the console, but it ties very heavily to what we're doing in the game. So it's awesome design. Super happy that PlayStation wanted to do it. @DESPumpkins with a Z asks, is New York City and Spider-Man 2 built to scale? It is not. Our idea is we want to create a New York City that kind of you have in your head, whether you've been there, seen it in the movies. There's tons of recognizable elements, whether it's certain neighborhoods, certain buildings. And then, of course, this is Marvel's New York, so we want to have things like Avengers Tower or the Wakandan Embassy. And what's been really awesome on Spider-Man 2 is that we've nearly doubled the size of the city with the addition of Brooklyn and Queens. So now you see things like Coney Island, you see where Miles goes to school at Brooklyn Visions Academy, and even Pete now living at Aunt May's old house. And now with things like the web wings, you can cross things like the East River and our bridges much easier than you could in the past, because in the last games, you couldn't even do that. @TheAnimeG asks, the web swinging with certain aspects added are so refreshing. I'm kind of interested to see how they can make Spider-Man 2 as cool as Miles Morales' web swinging. How we can make exploring the world and getting around the world better, the web wings. We knew really early on. We actually prototyped it really early in Spider-Man 1, but we were like, we don't know. It's a cool idea, but we just don't really have the time for it right now. So we knew by the time Spider-Man 2 was rolling around, it was like something we really wanted to do. So that's a big element. It really does change, so many times playing Spider-Man 1, you'll be above the buildings. You're like, well, I want to keep going. And now you can just Press triangle and boom, pop those web wings and keep gliding, just keeping that momentum when you don't have a web line available. But I think we've added other things like being able to turn a corner really, really fast. What people have asked for a long time is, yes, you can do the loop-to-loop now. In our game, you can unlock that skill. So adding all new animations, adding more swing animations. We know, we've heard you. You guys like swing animations. We get it. We've added more. @Ferk729 asks, do you think that Spider-Man 2 is story-wise, combat-wise, better than the 2018 Spider-Man game? God, I hope so, because we've been working really hard to deliver that. It's not just a story of Peter, it's not just a story of Miles. It's a story of both Peter and Miles, and they're not only their journey together, but individually. So one mission may just be as Pete, one mission may just be as Miles. Some missions you're actually be playing as both of them are switching back and forth. So we kind of control it. While in the open world, we give you a lot more choice. And then basically what we've done is we've created content that is specific for Peter, specific for Miles. And the combat front, we've just been adding a ton of stuff, whether it's, new powers for Miles and the evolved Venom, to obviously our symbiote abilities with Pete. Hell yeah, this game is better than Spider-Man 1. 09 Missy G asks, how do you write a compelling story that works for an open world game where the player could experience it out of order or even circumvent parts entirely? Part of an open world thing that people love is having that freedom, right? When you're making something like Spider-Man, we understand, when it comes to Marvel, everything starts with our story. What are they going through, not only in the mask, but out the mask? It's a balancing act. We have an amazing team of writers that work on this for years. We start really, really broad. Give me the paragraph of what the story is about, and then we go into a story treatment. The story treatment can go half a page to 1 page, to 5 pages, to 20 pages. Like, here's what Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 is about. And then we go into, okay, within Act 1, there's probably 5, 6, 7 missions. And we start to build out a macro, which shows kind of how it's going to flow together. And then from there, when we have kind of buy-in from the team and everybody on what the story treatment is, we start to write scripts. Lazy Justin asks, how does Insomniac manage to put out such high-quality games like every 2 years? Like, what is their secret? There is no perfect answer because no development is perfect. It's not going to go perfect. But what we always try to do is kind of self-evaluate ourselves. What can we learn from our previous production that we can apply to the next game? Back in the day, you would release a game and you'd kind of be done with it. Now, even for a single player game, you're looking at player feedback. Maybe there's something that, is tripping people up that we can update the game really quickly. Obviously with a multiplayer game, they're continually updating, they're rebalancing, they're putting out new content. The industry has evolved. Development is still going even when it's out. @Zach Rudin asks, how exactly does one go about designing a game to optimize the serious horsepower of a PS5? So first off, we're very fortunate to have Mark Cerny, the architect of the PlayStation 5, be one of our producers. I think it's this combination of learning about what the console can do. What can the console do that maybe we couldn't do before? What could we do in previous games now we can do better? I think when you look at Marvel Spider-Man 2 in comparison to our previous games, there are a multitude of things that we couldn't do before. We could not swing as fast as we do now. The world wouldn't have loaded the way it needs to load as you're swinging if we didn't have that. Our hero switching that we do in the open world would never be as fast as it is. I think our set pieces, we'd have to do a lot more smoke and mirrors than we actually are doing. We're taking our favorite comic panels, our favorite movie moments, and going, hey, we're going to do that in a video game and put you in control. Night Persian asks, how does Insomniac get such detailed textures? Damn, their engine is amazing. It is amazing. Our teams work really closely with our engine team. One of the benefits of having our own engine is that there's so much collaboration going on between our artists, our lighters, our effects team, everything to come together, because you can have an awesome texture, but if it doesn't have great lighting, it's not going to look as good as you want. @Moonlit Games asks, what do you think has been the most significant advancement in gaming recently? I would say the amount of accessibility that all developers across the world are adding to their games, whether making swinging more accessible, combat, anything we can do to get more players playing our games is a huge win, and it's something we're always going to continue to do from here on out. @PostMesmeric asks, I often wonder how video game developers determine what should be considered the default settings in their games. I think it starts off with, who are you making your game for? Our goal, first off, is we want to make it accessible and playable by as many people as possible. So that's whether it's how difficult the enemies are to defeat, to our traversal controls, our combat controls. But at the same time, we understand that there are also hardcore fans who want like a really tough challenge, so we offer difficulty modes. But what we usually do is we're testing our game with people who come into our usability labs and check it out, and sometimes they say, this is way too easy. Sometimes they say it's way too hard, and then we kind of go back and forth and just try to find that sweet spot. @Indie Wolverine asks, was there a single game that impacted you so much that you can confidently say it led to you having a career in the video game industry? Maybe not one game, but it was one console. It was the original Nintendo, the 8-bit Nintendo. I think, I remember that Christmas I got my first Nintendo and playing Zelda and Metroid. I remember like when I lost the code to Metroid where I was and cried my eyes out, even realizing the game wasn't as long as I thought it was when I was a kid. From when I was a little kid all the way to now, I still use it to kind of escape for a little bit. And I mean, I know it's probably cliche to say, but I can't believe I get paid to do this. @Von Romero asks, how often do you alter game mechanics to fit the story? Or perhaps how do you use game mechanics to benefit a story? Spider-Man 2, a big element of the story is the symbiote. They talked about forever. When are we having the symbiote story? Well, guess what? It's coming. But it's not just a part of our story. Pete has that black suit, but it's not just a new suit. He has all these plethora of symbiote abilities that we wanted to show off how different it makes Pete's fighting style. So when we think of our Spider-Man as these acrobatic improvisers. But with the symbiote, it was really important for us to show off not only the power of this substance, but also its transformational nature. So people love the symbiote. 126 Gaming. Just curious if there's any new variations to random crimes. I remember in Ultimate Spider-Man, which is a great game, sometimes smaller villains like Shocker and Boomerang would spawn as an event. Do you guys have anything like that in this game? We definitely have done more to spice up our random crimes with more surprises. We also have a bunch of things in the open world that you can do where you can discover some new storylines that aren't part of the main story, that are optional, but I can promise you, if you like villains, you will be rewarded. JMain518 asks, will Spider-Man 2 have multiple graphic and performance mode options like the remaster in the Miles Morales games? It sure will. So we'll offer fidelity mode, which runs at 30 frames a second and runs in 4K. We'll have performance mode, which runs to 60, but takes a little bit, we reduce the resolution a little bit. And then for people who have 120 hertz TVs, we actually have an option where you can run at 40 hertz and kind of get the best of both worlds. But no matter what mode you're running in, we will have ray trace reflections. So when you want to see how awesome, like you go up to a window and you want to see your Spider-Man suit, not just on the character, but in the reflection of the windows, it's going to look white shit hot awesome. Two Fool asks, why are video games important? Sometimes real life is not the greatest thing in the world. And sometimes we just need to find a way to take a break from it, reset. Whether we want to, be Link, be Mario, be Spider-Man. Sometimes we need that time to ourselves to kind of escape for a little bit. It's okay to take a break from real life, because sometimes, as great as real life can be, it can be stressful, it can be hard, it can be tough. But having those moments to kind of take a break and reset has been really great, and I hope that we can do that with the games that we make. Thank you for all the questions today. They were, in the words of Marvel, amazing.